Welcome! In this video, I'll be discussing the concept of effective rent and why it's an essential consideration for both landlords and tenants. Effective rent is a crucial metric that takes into account a variety of factors that affect the overall cost of the renting a property. These factors can include things like concessions, fees, and other incentives that landlords may offer to attract new tenants. By understanding how effective rent is calculated, landlords and tenants alike can make informed decisions when it comes to negotiating leases, setting rental rates, and managing their finances. So let's dive in and explore what effective rent is all about. When people search for apartments initially, there are many things they need to consider before signing the lease term. These include the location, proximity to work, whether it's a high-rise, and the amenities. However, the landlord is often more worried about the actual monthly rent amount. Things can get a bit confusing before the tenant signs on the dotted line. They check out the rental listings in their area and find one that fits their price range. It's in a good location, so they call you and ask for a showing. Everyone checks the apartment and you're ready for them to lock in the rental rate on the new apartment. Then you inform them that the rent amount is different from what was listed in the ad. That's the difference between total gross rent and net effective rent in real estate. It's common in large cities, but it's confusing to some landlords and tenants. Often it's best for the landlord to make sure that the tenant understands effective rent because they might not be able to get out of their contract once it's signed. As a landlord, you might wonder if listing different prices on ads is legal. Do you know the monthly rent the tenant pays? You can learn all about effective rent and ensure that the tenants check the lease closely. Gross rent. In real estate dealings, gross rent is the flat monthly rent that the tenant must pay for the lease period. This is the total rent of the entire term and can include any associated costs of renting, such as building dues, utilities, and maintenance fees. When renting, financial qualifications are calculated based on the gross rent. For example, in New York City, this number is 40 times the gross rent as the household income. If the apartment has a $3,000 annual rent gross, the person needs an annual income of $120,000 or more to qualify for that lease term. Overall, this way you know that the person can pay the rent rate of their first lease. What's net effective rent? Net effective rent is calculated as average rent. Overall, net effective rent means that the total cost of renting minus any discounts. As a landlord, you can offer concessions or small discounts, such as giving 1 or 2 months free as long as the tenant handles the other costs that you list in the lease. How's net effective rent calculated and what's free rent? When calculating effective rent, it can seem a bit confusing. Net effective rent is calculated when you multiply the gross rent, actual rent, by the length of the lease and then subtract the discounted months you give to the tenant. Then you can divide the actual amount by the length of your lease to get the net effective rate. It's quite common in real estate, but it's also very confusing as a property owner and tenant. Let's say that you have a gross rent of $3,000 a month with a lease length of 12 months. You give your tenant a free month's rent. Therefore, you multiply $3,000 by 11, the number of months you did not discount, and divide the amount by 12. Overall, the net effective rent is $2,750 a month. You can also offer other lease concessions to reduce the amount a person pays. Regardless, the actual rent rate is less than what you put in the ad. Because you gave them free rent or a free month, their average rent is a bit lower than the price. As a property owner, you can choose not to collect rent for that month. The tenant is paying $3,000 for 11 months and has 1 month free where they don't send you any money. Either way, they are discounted a free month's rent for the lease. It's up to the signer of the lease to read the terms and understand if you're using net effective rent or gross rents to calculate the amount they pay. With that, they should know the discounts you're providing and why. Most promotions are only good for the first year of the lease. However, you can choose to make an ongoing promotion to reduce your risk of turnover. Why do agents use net effective rent? Usually you give a discount on rent to give an incentive to the renters to finalize their rental agreement and agree to the lease term. Since the gross rent is higher than your net effective rent, potential renters jump at the chance to get better deals on the apartment. Another reason you might consider effective rent is that a cheaper price appears more on search engines. Potential renters want the best deal, so using effective rent prices bumps your real estate listing in searchings. Depending on your situation, you might want to disclose broker fees or remind the renters that they are responsible for any broker fees they incur. For example, if they use a real estate agent to find the property, they may have to pay them. That doesn't come out of your pocket, and it isn't part of those free months you offer. With that, you should understand that you're in control of the number of months they get for free and which ones you're paying. Tips for determining rent. Though it sounds straightforward, effective rent is often confusing to the owner of the apartment. To make life a bit easier, you may want to provide tenants with enough information so that they can determine their monthly rent price and get the best deal. Clarify the type of rent. Some property owners and real estate agents advertise properties based on the gross rent, and others use the net effective rent. Be wary of renters who jump into contracts without clarifying the type of rent you offer in the lease term. Make sure to tell them that you're using effective rent to reduce issues. Understand renewal terms. Prospective tenants are often ecstatic when they find an apartment that meets their needs. Therefore, they're more willing to renew each year when the landlords are straightforward with the lease term information and whether effective rent is used. As a landlord, you can apply effective rent to the first contract and offer one free month. After that lease agreement is up, you may choose to do this to incentivize the same renter to sign again. The world of real estate is confusing for most people. Landlords and real estate agents may have an apartment for rent and want to do things a bit differently. The goal of using this net effective rent is to make a deal or concessions over the average cost of the lease. That way, renters are more likely to sign with you. In this video, you'll learn about calculating effective rent and why you might use effective rent instead of gross rent. Now you can craft your advertisements and contracts in a way to save people money and provide an incentive for them to sign with you. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and found the information helpful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel to stay updated on our latest content. I also encourage you to leave a comment below with any feedback or questions you may have. Also, check out these videos to learn more about other topics on our channel. Happy renting!